Do this and change your life now. Stoic lessons for self-discipline. Your life is not falling apart because you are weak. It is falling apart because you have been taught to obey every emotion that passes through your mind. When you feel anxious, you stop. When you feel afraid, you avoid. When you feel unmotivated, you postpone. When you feel rejected, you question your value. And after years of living like this, you begin to believe that your emotions are telling you the truth. They are not. That voice inside your head that says you are too late, too broken, too tired, too lost. That is not wisdom. That is not reality. That is a mind without discipline, reacting to every fear as if it were a fact. Look carefully at your life. How many opportunities have you lost because you waited to feel ready? How many times have you allowed one bad day, one opinion, one moment of discomfort to control the direction of your entire life? You say you want peace, but you keep chasing control over things that were never yours. You want certainty about the future. You want people to understand you. You want life to happen exactly the way you planned. And when it does not, you suffer. This is the trap. You are trying to control the world while leaving your own mind uncontrolled. The Stoics understood something that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. If you cannot govern yourself, nothing outside you will ever bring you peace. In Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 7, paragraph 29, Marcus wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Read that again. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Everything changes when you understand this. You do not need a different life. You need a different relationship with your emotions. You do not need less difficulty. You need more discipline. You do not need the world to become softer. You need to become stronger. Because the truth is brutal, but freeing. Your emotions have been running your life. Anxiety has been making your decisions. Fear has been choosing your limits. Comfort has been stealing your future. But that ends today. In the next chapter, you are going to confront the hidden force that has been exhausting you for years. A battle you were never meant to fight. And once you see it, you will never look at your suffering the same way again. There is a reason you feel exhausted even when nothing terrible has happened. There is a reason you wake up already tense, already carrying a weight you cannot explain. It is not because life is impossible. It is because you have spent years fighting a war inside your own mind without realizing it. You think your problem is the future. You think your problem is your job, your past, the people around you, the pressure, the uncertainty. But look deeper. The real problem is that every emotion that enters your mind immediately becomes an order. If you feel anxious, you obey the anxiety. If you feel insecure, you obey the insecurity. If you feel tired, afraid, rejected, frustrated, or discouraged, you let that feeling decide what you do next. And little by little, without even noticing, you stop living by your principles and start living by your moods. That is why your life feels unstable. Because emotions are unstable. They change every hour, every day, sometimes every minute. One moment you are motivated and convinced that you are going to change your life. The next moment you feel overwhelmed and suddenly you tell yourself it is impossible. One moment you believe in yourself. The next, one criticism, one rejection, one difficult day is enough to make you doubt everything. Do you see what is happening? You are allowing temporary feelings to make permanent decisions. You postpone what matters because you do not feel ready. You stay silent because you are afraid of being judged. You abandon your goals because progress is slow. You remain in situations that are destroying you because you are afraid of change. Then, at the end of the day, you ask yourself why nothing changes. Nothing changes because the part of you that wants peace is too weak compared to the part of you that wants comfort. This is what nobody tells you. Most people are not controlled by reality. They are controlled by the emotional reaction they have to reality. Two people can go through the same failure. One becomes stronger, the other collapses. Two people can hear the same criticism. One learns, the other spends days suffering. Two people can face uncertainty. One remains calm, the other loses themselves completely. The difference is not the event, The difference is who is in control. Right now, your emotions are leading your life like invisible masters. Fear tells you to stay where you are. Anger tells you to react. Anxiety tells you to imagine the worst. Comfort tells you to wait until tomorrow. And because you have listened to these voices for so long, you no longer question them. You think, this is just who I am. No, this is who you have trained yourself to become. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than most people ever will. He was emperor of the most powerful empire in the world. He lived surrounded by war, betrayal, disease, pressure, death, and responsibility. Yet in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 5, Paragraph 1, he wrote to himself every morning that he had to get up and do the work of a human being, whether he felt like it or not. Think about that. Even Marcus Aurelius did not wake up every day feeling strong, clear, and motivated. He woke up with resistance. He woke up with the same voice that tells you to stay in bed, to avoid, to postpone. The difference is that he did not obey it. You do. And that is why you suffer. You have been taught to believe that your feelings are sacred, that if you do not feel ready, you should wait, that if you feel uncomfortable, something must be wrong, that if you are afraid, you should stop. But your emotions are not instructions. They are signals. They are information, not authority. Fear does not always mean danger. Sometimes fear means growth is near. Anxiety does not always mean something bad is coming. Sometimes it means you are trying to control what you cannot control. Discomfort does not always mean you are on the wrong path. Sometimes it means you are finally leaving the life that has been keeping you small. The tragedy is that most people never discover this. They spend their entire lives obeying feelings that change like the weather. They become prisoners of their own mind. They wait to feel confident before they act, and because they never act, confidence never comes. They wait to feel motivated before they begin, and because they never begin, motivation disappears. Then one day they wake up and realize they have spent years standing still, not because they lacked potential, but because they allowed emotion to become their master. You still have time to stop that cycle, but first you must be honest with yourself. How much of your life has been shaped by fear? How many decisions have you made just to avoid discomfort? How many dreams have you abandoned because you listened to a temporary feeling, as if it were the truth? You do not need to destroy your emotions. You need to stop kneeling before them, because the moment you stop obeying every feeling, you discover something powerful. There is another part of you, a quieter part, stronger, rational, steady, the part that knows what must be done, even when you do not feel like doing it. That is the part of you that can change your life. And in the next chapter, you are going to see why that part of you has been losing for so long. Not because you are weak, but because you have been fighting for control over things that never belonged to you in the first place. You are tired, not because life is too difficult, but because you are carrying things that were never yours to carry. You carry the opinions of other people as if they were facts. You carry the future as if you could predict it. You carry guilt for the past as if you could return and change it. You carry the need to be understood, accepted, admired, respected. And because you spend your days trying to hold together what was never in your control, your mind never rests. Look at how much energy you waste every day. You replay conversations in your head, imagining what you should have said. You think about whether people like you, whether they respect you, whether they secretly judge you. You imagine every possible disaster that might happen tomorrow, next week, next year. You want certainty before you move. You want guarantees before you act. You want the world to give you proof that everything will work out before you allow yourself to breathe. But the world will never give you that. And that is why you feel trapped, because you are demanding from life something life has never promised. Control. You want to control how quickly things happen. You want to control how people treat you. You want to control whether your effort will be rewarded. You want to control whether you fail, whether you suffer, whether you lose, whether people stay, whether they leave. Yet no matter how much you think, worry, plan, analyze, fear, or obsess, none of those things become yours. You can spend 10 years trying to make someone love you. You can spend every night worrying about the future. You can punish yourself for mistakes that happened long ago. And after all that suffering, you will discover the same truth the Stoics understood centuries ago. You never had control over any of it. This is the hidden reason why your mind is exhausted. You are fighting a battle that cannot be won. Epictetus said that some things are up to us, and some things are not. In the Enchiridion of Epictetus, chapter 1, he wrote that our opinions, desires, choices, and actions belong to us. Everything else does not. Most people hear this and move on. But if you truly understand it, it can change your entire life. Because almost everything that destroys your peace comes from confusing these two categories. You suffer because you think other people's opinions belong to you. They do not. You suffer because you think the future belongs to you. It does not. You suffer because you think you should be able to control how fast life changes, how quickly success comes, whether people appreciate you, whether they stay loyal, whether they understand your intentions. But none of that belongs to you. The only thing that belongs to you is your response, your character, your effort, your decisions, your ability to remain calm in chaos, honest in temptation, disciplined in difficulty. Read that again. The only thing that belongs to you is your response. This is not weakness. This is not surrender. This is freedom. Because the moment you stop trying to control what is outside you, you recover the power you have been wasting. Imagine how much energy would return to your life if you stopped trying to manage other people's minds. Imagine how much peace you would feel if you stopped demanding certainty from the future. Imagine what would happen if every time anxiety appeared you asked yourself one question: is this mine to control? Most of the time the answer would be no. No, you cannot control whether people approve of you. No, you cannot control whether life is fair. No, you cannot control how quickly things happen. No, you cannot control whether someone chooses to leave. No, you cannot control whether tomorrow brings difficulty. And because you cannot control these things, continuing to suffer over them is like standing in the middle of a storm and screaming at the sky to stop raining. You call it overthinking. The Stoics called it slavery. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 8, paragraph 47, that if something is outside your control, it is nothing to you. Nothing to you. Not because it is unimportant, but because your peace cannot depend on it. This is where most people resist. They say, but I care. I care about my future. I care about people. I care about what happens. Of course you care. The Stoics never said not to care. They said not to surrender your peace to things you cannot command. You can love people without controlling them. You can work toward your future without becoming obsessed with it. You can have goals without allowing your happiness to depend on the outcome. That is the difference. The weak person says, I will be at peace when everything goes my way. The disciplined person says, I will be at peace because I know what is mine and what is not. Think about how much of your suffering comes from trying to force life into the shape you want. Think about how many nights you have lost fighting reality. Think about how much pain you have created by demanding certainty where certainty does not exist. You do not need more control over the world. You need more control over yourself. Because once you stop wasting your strength on what was never yours, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Clear, calm, focused, unshakable. And then something surprising happens. You stop waiting. You stop waiting for the right mood, the perfect opportunity, more confidence, more reassurance. You stop asking life for permission to begin. That is where true change starts. And that is exactly what the next chapter is about. Most people spend their entire lives waiting to feel ready, waiting to have more confidence, waiting for the right opportunity, the perfect moment, the ideal conditions. They tell themselves that one day they will change. One day they will become disciplined, courageous, calm, focused. One day they will finally begin, but that day never comes. Because the truth is that life does not reward the person who waits. Life rewards the person who acts while still afraid. Right now, there is probably something in your life that you already know you need to do. A conversation you keep avoiding. A habit you need to break. A decision you know you must make. A path you want to follow but keep postponing. because you do not feel strong enough. And every day you tell yourself the same lie. I will do it when I feel more ready. No, you will not. Because readiness is not something that arrives before action. Readiness is created by action. You are waiting for confidence to appear before you move. But confidence is built by moving. You are waiting to stop being afraid before you begin. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting while fear is still there. This is where most people remain trapped. They believe they need permission. Permission from their emotions. Permission from other people. Permission from the world. They want someone to tell them they are good enough. They want certainty that they will not fail. They want proof that everything will work out. Only then they think will they allow themselves to begin. But no one is coming to give you that permission. And even if they did, it would never be enough. Because the real prison is not outside you. It is the habit of postponing your life until you feel comfortable enough to live it. You say you want change, but every time discomfort appears, you retreat. You say you want peace, but you continue to obey the part of yourself that wants safety more than growth. That is why you remain stuck. You have confused fear with a sign to stop. But what if fear is not a warning? What if fear is the doorway? Think about every meaningful thing you could do in your life. Speaking honestly, starting over, leaving what is destroying you, building discipline, becoming the person you admire. Every one of those things will feel uncomfortable at first. Not because they are wrong, but because you have spent years training yourself to avoid discomfort. The mind always resists what is unfamiliar, even when what is familiar is making you miserable. That is why so many people remain in lives they hate. They stay in relationships that are draining them, habits that are weakening them, routines that are destroying them, simply because suffering has become familiar. They would rather live with a pain they know than face the uncertainty of change. Seneca understood this. In Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, letter 28, he wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Read that carefully. Most of what you fear has not happened. Most of what you are waiting for does not exist. The perfect moment is an illusion. The right time is a story your mind tells you so that you do not have to act today. But life is happening now, and every day you delay, you strengthen the part of yourself that believes you cannot. Every time you say tomorrow, you are teaching your mind that fear is stronger than your will. Every time you avoid what must be done, you make avoidance your identity. This is why your life will not change until you stop asking life for permission. You do not need permission to begin becoming stronger. You do not need permission to stop tolerating what is destroying you. You do not need permission to take responsibility for your mind, your habits, your choices. You already know what you need to do. The problem is not that you do not know. The problem is that you are still waiting to feel different before you act different. But feelings follow actions. A man does not become disciplined and then begin waking up early. He wakes up early, again and again, until discipline becomes part of him. A person does not become confident and then start speaking with courage. They speak, even with a shaking voice, until courage becomes natural. Nobody starts ready. Marcus Aurelius did not feel ready. Epictetus did not feel ready. Seneca did not feel ready. They became who they were because they stopped negotiating with the part of themselves that wanted to remain comfortable. And you must do the same. Because there are two versions of you, the one who keeps waiting, and the one who decides. The one who waits says, maybe tomorrow. The one who decides says, today, even if I am afraid. One of those versions will control the rest of your life, and the next chapter will reveal the dangerous habit that keeps most people trapped in the weaker version of themselves, making decisions based on how they feel in the moment. The greatest mistake you make is not feeling fear, sadness, anger, insecurity, or doubt. The greatest mistake is allowing those feelings to make your decisions for you. You tell yourself that you are being honest with yourself. You say, I just do not feel like it today. You say, maybe tomorrow I will be more motivated. You say, right now is not the right time. But what you call honesty is often surrender. Because if you only act when you feel good, strong, inspired, and certain, then your entire life will always remain in the hands of emotions that change every hour. Think about how many important decisions you have made based on a temporary feeling. You quit something valuable because you felt discouraged. You stayed silent because you felt insecure. You avoided a challenge because you felt afraid. You gave up on yourself because one bad day convinced you that nothing would ever change. Then later, when the feeling passed, you looked back and realized the emotion lied to you. This is the danger of living by emotion. An emotion always feels permanent when you are inside it. When you are anxious, it feels as though you will always be anxious. When you are sad, it feels as though your life will never improve. When you are angry, it feels as though you must react immediately. When you are afraid, it feels as though danger is everywhere. But emotions are like storms, intense, loud, convincing. Then they pass. The problem is that many people build their entire life in the middle of the storm. They make permanent decisions in temporary states. They end relationships because they are angry. They abandon goals because they are tired. They betray their values because they are afraid. Then when clarity returns, they are left with the consequences of choices that were never truly theirs. Epictetus warned about this in Discourses of Epictetus, Book 2, Chapter 18. He said that when impressions first appear in the mind, you must not immediately be carried away by them. You must pause and test them. That pause changes everything, because between what you feel and what you do, there is a space, and in that space, your freedom exists. Most people never use that space. They react instantly. They let anger speak for them. They let fear decide for them. They let sadness convince them that there is no point. They become servants of the first emotion that enters the room. But the disciplined person does something different. They feel the emotion, but they do not kneel before it. They feel fear and still move. They feel anger and remain silent until they can think clearly. They feel doubt and continue anyway. They understand that feelings are visitors, not leaders. Imagine if every time you felt something difficult, instead of obeying it, you asked one question. What would the strongest version of me do right now? Not the most comfortable version. Not the most emotional. The strongest. The strongest version of you would not let one bad morning destroy the entire day. The strongest version of you would not abandon years of effort because of one moment of frustration. The strongest version of you would not confuse discomfort with failure. That version of you already exists. But every time you allow emotion to make the decision, you push that version further away. This is why discipline is not about becoming cold or emotionless. The Stoics never taught that. They taught that reason must lead and emotion must follow. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 11, Paragraph 19, that the mind becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you constantly obey fear, your mind becomes fearful. If you constantly obey comfort, your mind becomes weak. If you constantly obey anger, your mind becomes bitter. But if you train yourself to obey reason instead, your mind becomes calm, disciplined, and strong. At first, this feels impossible. You will still wake up some days wanting to quit. You will still have moments when anxiety tells you to run, when sadness tells you to stop, when comfort tells you to wait until tomorrow. The difference is that you no longer believe those voices automatically. You begin to recognize them for what they are, old habits trying to protect you from discomfort. But nothing great in your life will ever come from remaining protected. Your future is being shaped by the decisions you make when you do not feel like doing what is right. Anyone can be disciplined when they are motivated. Anyone can remain calm when life is easy. Anyone can feel strong when nothing challenges them. The real test is who you become when the emotion says one thing and your principles say another. Because that is the moment when character is built. And there is one emotion that controls more people than any other. One force that quietly destroys ambition, courage, discipline, and peace. It feels harmless at first. It even feels pleasant. Comfort. That is what the next chapter is about. Comfort is dangerous because it does not look like an enemy. Fear announces itself. Anger reveals itself. Anxiety makes itself obvious. But comfort enters your life quietly. It whispers. It tells you that you deserve a break, that you can start tomorrow, that one more day will not matter. And because it sounds gentle, because it sounds reasonable, you trust it. That is how people lose years of their lives. Not through one terrible decision, but through thousands of small acts of surrender. One more hour wasted, one more excuse, one more day waiting for motivation, one more moment choosing what is easy over what is necessary. Then suddenly, you look around and realize that nothing has changed. You are still in the same place with the same fears, the same habits, the same regrets. The tragedy is that you do not even notice comfort is destroying you, because it never feels painful in the moment. It feels good to avoid difficult conversations. It feels good to stay in bed. It feels good to distract yourself, to scroll, to eat, to postpone, to hide in entertainment, noise, and routine. It feels good to avoid discomfort. But what feels good now often creates suffering later, and what feels difficult now often creates freedom later. That is the choice you're making every day, whether you realize it or not. You think you want peace, but many times what you really want is comfort, and those are not the same thing. Comfort says, avoid what is hard. Peace says, face what is hard and know that you can survive it. Comfort says, stay where you are. Peace says, grow. Comfort says, protect yourself from discomfort. Peace says, you do not need protection, you need strength. Most people spend their lives confusing these two things. They believe that if they can avoid enough pain, enough effort, enough uncertainty, they will finally feel better. But the opposite happens. The more you avoid discomfort, the weaker you become. The weaker you become, the harder life feels. Then even small problems begin to overwhelm you. A criticism ruins your day. A delay makes you anxious. A difficult conversation feels unbearable. You need constant distraction because silence forces you to face what you have been avoiding. This is why modern life has made so many people fragile. Not because they are incapable, but because they have trained themselves to escape every feeling they do not like. The moment boredom appears, they reach for their phone. The moment sadness appears, they seek distraction. The moment fear appears, they retreat. The moment discomfort appears, they run. But every time you run from discomfort, you teach your mind that discomfort is dangerous. And once your mind believes that, it begins to fear everything. Epictetus said that no great thing is created suddenly. Strength is built slowly through repetition, through difficulty, through learning to remain steady when every part of you wants to escape. You do not become disciplined by reading about discipline. You become disciplined by doing what is difficult when your emotions tell you not to. This is why the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, not because they enjoyed suffering, not because they wanted to punish themselves. They did it because they understood something most people never do. If you cannot face small discomforts willingly, life will destroy you with larger ones. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, letter 18, that from time to time you should practice poverty, simplicity, and discomfort, and ask yourself, is this what I feared? What a powerful question. Because most of what you fear loses its power the moment you face it. The difficult conversation you keep avoiding, the habit you keep postponing, the truth you keep refusing to admit, the challenge you believe you cannot survive. You can survive it. The discomfort is not what is hurting you. The avoidance is. Think about how much energy you spend trying to escape things that would only take courage to face once. You are exhausted because you are carrying the weight of everything you refuse to confront, and the more you avoid, the heavier it becomes. You do not need to become harder, colder, or more emotionless. You need to become more willing. Willing to sit in silence without distraction. Willing to do what must be done without waiting for motivation. Willing to endure the temporary pain that leads to long-term freedom. Because every time you choose discomfort on purpose, you send your mind a new message. I am stronger than this. Every time you get up when you want to stay down, every time you speak when you want to stay silent, every time you act while afraid, you reclaim a little more control over your life. That is how self-discipline is built. Not through dramatic change, through small moments where you refuse to obey the weaker part of yourself. And there is something else you must learn, something that most people never understand. You do not need other people to see your struggle, your effort, or your growth for it to matter. In fact, some of the strongest transformations happen in silence. That is what the next chapter is about. One of the reasons you keep feeling stuck is because too much of your life has been built around being seen. You want people to notice your effort. You want them to recognize your pain, your progress, your discipline, your intentions. You want proof that what you are doing matters. And when nobody notices, when nobody praises you, when nobody understands what you are carrying, you begin to lose motivation. That is dangerous. Because the moment your strength depends on being seen, you become a prisoner of other people's attention. You stop asking, "Is this the right thing to do?" and start asking, "Will anyone notice?" You stop living according to your values and start living according to what can be admired, rewarded, or applauded. Then slowly, without realizing it, your discipline becomes performance. You speak about what you are going to do more than you actually do it. You announce your plans. You seek validation. You want people to know that you are changing, healing, improving, becoming stronger. But talking about change is not change. Many people confuse being admired with becoming better. They post the workout but do not build the discipline. They speak about peace but remain controlled by anger. They talk about growth while avoiding everything that would require them to grow. The truth is uncomfortable. The strongest parts of you will be built in silence. When nobody is watching, when nobody is encouraging you, when nobody is giving you credit. That is where character is formed. Because if you only do what is right when people are looking, then you are not guided by principle. You are guided by approval. And approval is one of the weakest foundations a person can build their life upon. People change. Opinions change. Praise disappears. The same people who admire you today may criticize you tomorrow. If your peace depends on what others think of you, then your peace will never belong to you. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. In Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 4, Paragraph 3, he reminded himself not to waste time thinking about what others think, but to focus on becoming a good person. Becoming, not appearing. That is the difference. Most people are obsessed with appearing strong. Few are willing to become strong, because becoming strong is lonely. There are days when nobody will understand your decisions. There are days when your progress will be invisible. There are days when you will be doing everything right and still receive no reward, no recognition, no reassurance. Those are the moments that reveal who you really are. Can you continue without applause? Can you keep your word to yourself even when nobody would know if you broke it? Can you remain disciplined in private? That is real power. A person who only behaves well in front of others is not disciplined. They are performing. A person who does what is right in silence, who remains honest when lying would be easier, who keeps going when nobody is watching, that person is free. Because they are no longer controlled by the need to be seen. Think about how much of your suffering comes from needing people to understand you. You want people to see how hard you are trying. You want them to appreciate what you give, to notice what you sacrifice, to recognize your intentions. But what if they never do? Would you still do what is right? Would you still continue? You must. Because if your actions are truly based on virtue, then they remain valuable, even if nobody notices them. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, letter 43, that the wise person is content to be approved by themselves. At first, that sounds impossible. You have spent so much of your life measuring yourself through other people's eyes. You have learned to ask, "Am I enough?" based on whether people praise you, choose you, admire you, respond to you. But other people's attention cannot tell you who you are. Only your actions can. Only the promises you keep to yourself. Only the way you behave when there is no audience. This is why private discipline is so powerful. It changes you from the inside out. You wake up early, not because someone will admire it, but because you said you would. You remain calm, not because people are watching, but because your principles matter more than your emotions. You continue improving, even in silence, because you no longer need the world to give you permission to become who you are meant to be. And something remarkable happens when you stop seeking approval. You become lighter. You stop wasting energy trying to control how people see you. You stop shaping your life around their expectations. You stop fearing criticism because you know your value does not depend on other people's opinions. That is when you begin to live honestly, not for applause, not for recognition, not for validation, but because you know who you want to become. And once you begin to live that way, another battle appears, the battle against the voice inside your own head. Because even when the world is silent, your mind still speaks. And too often, what it says is a lie. That is what the next chapter is about. There is a voice inside your mind that speaks with complete certainty. It tells you that you are failing, that you are too late, that other people are better than you, that you will never change, that you have already wasted too much time. That one mistake defines you. That because you are afraid, you must not be capable. And the most dangerous part is not that this voice exists. The most dangerous part is that you believe it. You hear a thought and immediately assume it is the truth. You think, I am not good enough, and instead of questioning it, you build your life around it. You think, nothing will ever change, and suddenly you stop trying. You think, they do not care about me, and you begin to suffer over a story that may not even be real. Your mind speaks and you obey. But the mind is not always honest. In fact, most of the suffering you experience is not caused by reality. It is caused by the meaning you attach to reality. Something happens and instantly your mind creates a story. You fail once, and your mind says, I am a failure. Someone leaves, and your mind says, I was not enough. You make a mistake, and your mind says, I always ruin everything. But those are not facts, they are interpretations. And an interpretation can be wrong. This is one of the most important things the Stoics ever understood. In the Enchiridion of Epictetus, chapter 5, Epictetus said that people are disturbed not by things but by the view they take of them. Read that carefully. Not by things, by the view they take of them. That means the event itself is not what is destroying your peace. It is the story your mind tells you about the event. You are rejected and your mind says, I will always be alone. You face uncertainty and your mind says, everything is going to fall apart. You struggle, and your mind says, I am weak. Then you suffer, not because those things are true, but because you have treated them as if they are. The mind is very convincing when you are tired, emotional, afraid, lonely, or disappointed. That is why you must learn to separate what happened from what you are telling yourself about what happened. What happened is that you failed. The story is that you are a failure. What happened is that someone did not choose you. The story is that you are unworthy. What happened is that life became difficult. The story is that you cannot handle it. One is reality. The other is a lie. And if you never learn the difference, you will spend your entire life fighting shadows. Marcus Aurelius knew this. In Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 8, paragraph 47, he wrote that, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Your estimate of it. That means you have more power than you think. Because if the interpretation creates the suffering, then changing the interpretation changes everything. This does not mean pretending that pain is not real. It does not mean lying to yourself or forcing fake positivity. It means seeing clearly. You can say, this is difficult, without saying, I am broken. You can say, I failed, without saying, I am worthless. You can say, I am afraid, without saying, I cannot act. The disciplined mind does not believe every thought. It examines it. It asks, is this true? Is this useful? Or is this just fear wearing the mask of truth? Most of the thoughts that keep you trapped would never survive that question. You tell yourself it is too late. Too late according to whom? You tell yourself you will never change. How do you know? You tell yourself you are weak. But perhaps you only feel weak because you have spent so long listening to the part of yourself that wants to give up. There are two voices inside you. One speaks from fear, habit, insecurity, and pain. The other speaks from reason, courage, discipline, and truth. The first voice is loud. The second is quiet. That is why most people never hear it. The louder voice says, "Stay where you are." The quieter voice says, "You can handle more than you think." The louder voice says, "You are not ready." The quieter voice says, "Begin anyway." The louder voice says, "This is the end." The quieter voice says, "This is the beginning." Which voice has been guiding your life? Because the answer to that question shapes everything: your actions, your confidence, your future, your peace. You do not have to believe every thought that enters your mind. You do not have to continue living under the authority of old stories that no longer serve you. You can challenge them. You can replace them. You can decide that from this moment on, you will no longer allow your fears to speak as if they are facts. And when you stop believing the lies in your head, something unexpected happens. The things that once seemed unbearable begin to look different. The obstacle no longer looks like proof that you are failing. It begins to look like the very thing that might make you stronger. That is what the next chapter is about. You have spent so much of your life asking, "Why is this happening to me? Why did this person leave? Why did I fail? Why is life so difficult? Why does everything seem harder for me than for everyone else?" And because you keep asking those questions, you remain trapped inside the pain. Because those questions have no power, they do not make you stronger. They do not change what happened. They only keep your attention fixed on what you have lost, what you cannot control, and what you wish had been different. There is another question, a harder question, a better question. What if this is exactly what you need? What if the obstacle you hate is the thing that is trying to teach you something you could not learn any other way? You do not want rejection. But perhaps rejection is teaching you to stop building your worth on other people's approval. You do not want uncertainty. But perhaps uncertainty is teaching you to trust yourself. You do not want loneliness. But perhaps loneliness is teaching you who you are when there is nobody to distract you. You do not want failure. But perhaps failure is teaching you patience, humility, resilience, and discipline. The truth is that you want the strength without the struggle. You want confidence without discomfort. You want peace without sacrifice. You want to become stronger, but you want life to remain easy. That is impossible. Nothing strong is built without resistance. A tree grows deep roots because it faces storms. A person becomes wise because they face pain. Character is not created when life is comfortable. Character is revealed when life becomes difficult. But most people never discover this because they spend all their energy trying to escape difficulty. The moment life becomes uncomfortable, they panic. They assume something is wrong. They retreat. They complain. They look for the fastest way back to comfort. Then they wonder why they remain the same. You cannot become stronger if you spend your entire life avoiding the conditions that create strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 5, paragraph 20, that the obstacle standing in the way becomes the way. At first, those words seem impossible to believe. How can pain become the path? How can rejection help you? How can loss make you stronger? Because difficulty forces you to develop the qualities that comfort never will. Patience is born when things do not happen as quickly as you want. Courage is born when you act despite fear. Self-respect is born when you stop chasing people who do not choose you. Discipline is born when you continue despite discomfort. Inner peace is born when you stop demanding that life be different. Think about the strongest version of yourself. That person is not created in easy moments. That person is created in the moment you want to quit, but do not. In the moment you feel rejected, but refuse to lose your dignity. In the moment you are afraid, but move forward anyway. Every challenge in your life is asking you the same question. Will this break you, or will this build you? And the answer depends on how you choose to see it. Two people can experience the same obstacle. One becomes bitter. The other becomes wiser. One says, "This ruined my life." The other says, "This changed me." The event is the same. The meaning is different. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, letter 67, that difficulties strengthen the mind just as labor strengthens the body. You already understand this in other parts of life. You know that muscles grow through resistance. You know that skill grows through repetition. You know that confidence grows by facing what once frightened you. Then why do you expect your mind and character to grow without struggle? You cannot become calm if you never face chaos. You cannot become disciplined if you never resist comfort. You cannot become fearless if you spend your life running from everything that scares you. The obstacle is not punishing you. It is training you. That does not mean you have to enjoy suffering. It does not mean you have to pretend pain does not hurt. It means you stop seeing your pain as proof that life is against you. Perhaps life is not against you. Perhaps life is demanding more from you. Perhaps this challenge exists because there is a stronger version of you waiting on the other side of it. But that version of you will never appear if you continue asking life to remove every obstacle. You must become the kind of person who can walk through the obstacle instead. You must stop asking, "Why me?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That question changes everything. Because once you stop fighting the obstacle, once you stop seeing it as your enemy, you begin to use it. The rejection becomes clarity. The pain becomes wisdom. The uncertainty becomes freedom. The struggle becomes strength. And yet there is still one thing that keeps most people trapped even after they understand all of this. They continue resisting reality. They continue arguing with what already is. That is what the next chapter is about. You suffer twice. First because life is difficult, then because you refuse to accept that it is difficult. That second kind of suffering is the one that destroys you. It is the suffering of resistance. You keep telling yourself that this should not have happened, that people should have been different, that the past should not have unfolded the way it did, that life should be easier, fairer, more predictable. And because reality refuses to obey your demands, you remain trapped between what is and what you wish were true. That is why you feel exhausted. You are not only carrying pain, you are carrying the endless argument you have with pain. You replay the same memories. You revisit the same disappointment. You repeat the same question. Why did this happen? But no matter how many times you ask it, the past does not change. The person who left does not return. The opportunity does not come back. The years do not reverse. The mistake does not disappear. Still you resist. You keep looking at reality and saying no. No, this should not be happening. No, I do not accept it. No, this is not fair. And every time you say no to something that is already real, you lose more energy. Because reality does not need your permission to exist. The hardest lesson in life is that some things cannot be changed. People leave, plans fail, you lose things, you make mistakes, you are misunderstood, you get hurt, you age. You do not control what happens, but you do control whether you spend the rest of your life fighting against what has already happened. Most people do. They spend years trying to emotionally negotiate with reality. They think, if I suffer enough, maybe it will undo what happened. It never does. Suffering cannot change the past. Resistance cannot heal you. Only acceptance can. Acceptance is one of the most misunderstood ideas in Stoicism. People think acceptance means weakness. They think it means giving up, lowering your standards, becoming passive. It does not. Acceptance is not saying, I like this. Acceptance is saying, this is real. That is all. This happened. This person is gone. This chapter of my life is over. This is difficult. This hurts. But it is real. And the moment you stop denying reality, something powerful happens. You become free to respond to it. Because as long as you resist reality, you cannot act clearly. You waste all your energy wishing instead of choosing. You stay stuck between the life you have and the life you thought you would have. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 10, Paragraph 1, that you must accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. At first, those words seem impossible. How could pain fit your needs? How could loss, failure, disappointment, loneliness, or uncertainty belong in your life? Perhaps because they are forcing you to become someone you would never have become otherwise. Perhaps because you cannot grow while you are still clinging to the version of life you imagined. You say you want peace, but peace is impossible when you are at war with reality. You say you want clarity, but clarity cannot exist while you keep insisting that what happened should not have happened. There is a strange comfort in resistance, because if you keep resisting, you never have to move on. If you keep telling yourself that this should not be happening, then you do not have to face the difficult truth that it is happening, and that now you must decide what to do next. That is why people remain trapped for years. Not because they are weak, because they are waiting for reality to become different before they allow themselves to live again. Do not do that. Do not waste another year waiting for the past to change. Do not waste another month waiting for someone to become who they have already shown you they are not. Do not waste another day arguing with what is. Look at your life honestly. What are you still resisting? What truth are you still refusing to accept? What pain are you still feeding by pretending it should not exist? The answer to those questions is where your freedom begins. Because when you accept reality, you do not become weaker, you become stronger. You stop wasting strength on denial. You stop carrying what cannot be changed. You stop asking why, and begin asking what now. That is the question that changes everything. What now? What can you do with what is left? What can you build from this? What kind of person do you want to become because of this? That is where your power is. Not in changing the past, not in controlling the future, in choosing your response to the present. And one of the most important responses you can choose is calm. Because even after you accept reality, there will still be moments when everything inside you wants to react. Moments when anger, fear, frustration, and pain will try to take control again. That is what the next chapter is about. There will be moments when everything inside you wants to react. Someone disrespects you. Someone lies to you. Life becomes unfair. You are disappointed, insulted, ignored, betrayed. In those moments, something rises inside you immediately. Anger, fear, the urge to defend yourself, to prove yourself, to say something, to do something, to make sure the world knows how much you are hurting. And because the emotion is intense, you believe you must obey it. You think that reacting immediately is strength. It is not. Most reactions are not strength. They are surrender. Because when you react without thinking, you are allowing someone else or something else to control you. A rude person controls your mood. An insult controls your behavior. A moment of frustration controls your decisions. Then you tell yourself, you had no choice. But you did. You always do. The strongest person is not the one who can dominate others. The strongest person is the one who can remain in control of themselves when everything inside them wants to lose control. That is rare. Most people can stay calm when life is easy. Most people can speak about discipline, patience, and virtue when nothing challenges them. The real test comes when you are angry, when you are afraid, when you are exhausted, when every part of you wants to explode, escape, argue, defend, or quit. Who are you in that moment? That is your true character. Anyone can act wisely after the emotion has passed. Anyone can look back and say, I should not have said that. I should not have reacted that way. The difficult thing is to remain calm while the emotion is still burning inside you. That is why Stoicism is not about theory. It is about practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 6, paragraph 30, that the best revenge is not to become like the person who harmed you. Think about how much suffering comes from becoming exactly what hurt you. Someone is cruel to you, so you become cruel. Someone lies, so you become dishonest. Someone acts without control, and you lose control too. Then they have not only hurt you, they have changed you. Do not give people that power. Do not let the world turn you into someone you do not respect. Because every time you react blindly, you betray yourself. You say things you do not mean. You make decisions you regret. You create problems that did not need to exist. All because you allowed one moment to control you. Epictetus said that no person is free who is not master of themselves. And that means you are not free if anger controls you. You are not free if anxiety controls you. You are not free if your emotions can be manipulated by every person, every event, every inconvenience. Real freedom begins when you can feel something deeply and still choose your response. There is a pause between what happens and what you do. Most people never use it. The Stoic uses it for everything. Before speaking, pause. Before reacting, pause. Before sending the message, making the decision, raising your voice, giving up, pause. That pause is where your power lives, because in that pause you remember who you want to be. You remember that not every battle deserves your energy. You remember that proving yourself to the wrong people is a waste of your life. You remember that staying calm is not weakness. It is control. There is something deeply powerful about a person who cannot be easily disturbed. A person who remains steady while others become chaotic. A person who is insulted and does not need to respond immediately. A person who faces pressure and still thinks clearly. That kind of person is dangerous in the best way, because they are no longer controlled by the world around them. They are governed by something deeper. Principle. Most people live at the mercy of whatever they feel in the moment. The Stoic does not. The Stoic asks, what is the right thing to do? Not, what do I feel like doing? Those are very different questions. The first leads to strength. The second leads to regret. This does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting your feelings drive the car. You can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can feel sadness without giving up. You can feel fear without running away. You can feel pain without losing your dignity. That is emotional mastery. And once you begin to master your reactions, another change becomes possible. You stop measuring your life by things that were never yours to control. You stop making your peace dependent on outcomes, recognition, speed, and results. That is what the next chapter is about. One of the deepest reasons you suffer is because you have made your peace dependent on results. You tell yourself that you will finally be calm when you succeed, when people recognize you, when life becomes easier, when things happen faster, when the future finally looks the way you imagined. Until then, you remain restless. You keep pushing your peace into the future. You say, I will be enough when I achieve more. I will be happy when I get there. I will finally breathe when everything works out. But there is a problem. There will always be another result to chase, another goal, another fear, another reason to believe that your life is not enough yet. That is why so many people remain anxious even when they get what they wanted, because they built their peace on something unstable. Results change. Recognition disappears. Success comes and goes. The future never stays still long enough to make you feel safe. If your happiness depends on those things, then your happiness will always be fragile. You think the problem is that you have not achieved enough. No. The problem is that you are asking achievement to give you something it cannot give. Inner peace. You cannot control how quickly things happen. You cannot control whether people appreciate you. You cannot control whether your work is rewarded immediately. You cannot control whether life unfolds according to your plans, yet you continue judging yourself based on those things. You look at your life and say, I am behind. Compared to whom? You say, I am failing. Because something has not happened yet, you say, I am not enough. Because the world has not given you the result you wanted, you are measuring your value with the wrong ruler. The Stoics understood that there is a difference between what you do and what happens. What you do belongs to you. What happens does not. You control your effort. You control your discipline. You control your honesty, your courage, your consistency, your ability to continue even when it is difficult. The result is never fully yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 6, Paragraph 2, that your task is to do what is right. The rest is beyond you. The rest is beyond you. Read that again. You are exhausting yourself trying to own things that were never yours. You do the work, then spend all night worrying about whether it will be enough. You try your best, then torture yourself because the outcome is uncertain. You make progress, then refuse to appreciate it because you are not where you want to be yet. Nothing destroys peace faster than making your worth depend on how quickly life rewards you. Because life is not always fair. Sometimes you will work hard and not be recognized. Sometimes you will do everything right and still fail. Sometimes you will give your best and still lose. What then? Will you collapse? Will you decide that your effort meant nothing? Most people do. That is why they give up. Not because they are weak, but because they expected the world to immediately reward what only time can reveal. The disciplined person thinks differently. They understand that success is not their job. Their job is to become someone who acts with integrity regardless of the outcome. They stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin asking, "Can I respect myself for how I showed up?" That question changes everything, because there is peace in knowing you did what was yours to do. There is peace in knowing you remained disciplined even when nobody noticed. There is peace in knowing that your effort is not wasted simply because the result has not arrived yet. You do not need the future to prove your value. You do not need other people to confirm that your path matters. You do not need immediate results to know that you are becoming stronger. The seed does not become a tree overnight. And yet every day beneath the ground something is growing. That is you. Every day you choose discipline over comfort, patience over panic, courage over fear. You are changing. Even if nobody sees it. Even if the result is still far away. Do not make the mistake of abandoning yourself simply because the reward is delayed. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, letter 13, that the wise person does not rely on the uncertain. Most people do. They rely on praise, on success, on other people, on perfect conditions. Then when those things disappear, they fall apart. Build your peace on something stronger, on your character, on your principles, on the fact that no matter what happens, you can still choose to act with courage, honesty, patience, and self-control. That is something nobody can take from you. And once you stop measuring yourself by outcomes, something unexpected happens. You begin to see that the person you are becoming matters more than the result you are chasing. Because there is still one version of yourself waiting for you. A version you already know exists. A version you keep avoiding. That is what the next chapter is about. There is a version of you that already knows what must be done. A version of you that is calm instead of reactive. Disciplined instead of distracted. Courageous instead of afraid. A version of you that wakes up and does what must be done without negotiating with emotions, without making excuses, without waiting for the perfect moment. You have seen that version of yourself before, in rare moments of clarity, in the moments when you were tired of your own excuses, when you stopped overthinking and simply acted, when you spoke honestly, stood your ground, remained calm, did the difficult thing, and afterward realized that you were capable of much more than you thought. That version of you is real. The problem is not that you cannot become that person. The problem is that becoming that person requires you to let go of the identity you have been protecting. Because there is another version of you, the one built from excuses, the one who says, "This is just the way I am." The one who blames the past, blames other people, blames circumstances, blames fear. The one who has become comfortable with being disappointed in themselves. That version of you feels familiar. And that is why you keep returning to it. Human beings do not always choose what is best for them. Often they choose what is familiar. Even if what is familiar is painful. You know this already. You return to the same habits that weaken you. You repeat the same thoughts that keep you small. You stay in the same emotional patterns because at least you know them. You know how to be anxious. You know how to doubt yourself. You know how to postpone. You know how to say, "Tomorrow." But becoming stronger means leaving behind the identity that has been keeping you trapped. And that is painful, because it feels like losing a part of yourself. You have spent years telling yourself the same story. I am not disciplined. I am too emotional. I always ruin things. I cannot change. At some point, you stopped treating those thoughts like thoughts. You began treating them like your identity. But they are not your identity. They are habits, they are patterns, they are beliefs repeated so many times that they started to sound true. The Stoics understood that no person is born weak or strong. People become what they repeatedly do. If you repeatedly choose comfort, you become weak. If you repeatedly choose discipline, you become strong. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you cannot change, then you create a life that proves it. But if you begin acting differently, even before you fully believe in yourself, then slowly your identity begins to change. This is why transformation feels so uncomfortable. You are not only changing your habits, you are changing who you believe you are. And every old part of you will resist. The part of you that wants to stay safe will tell you to stop. The part of you that is afraid of failure will tell you not to try. The part of you that has become attached to being a victim will tell you that it is too hard, too late, too unfair. Do not listen. That voice is not protecting you. It is imprisoning you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 7, paragraph 56, that what stands in the way becomes the way. Most people hear those words and think about external obstacles. But sometimes the obstacle is you. Your excuses, your old identity, your attachment to the version of yourself that no longer serves you. You keep saying you want peace. But peace cannot exist while you continue betraying yourself. You keep saying you want confidence. But confidence is impossible when you keep proving to yourself that you cannot trust your own word. You keep saying you want a different life. But a different life requires a different you. Not a perfect you. A more honest one. A more disciplined one. A stronger one. You do not become that person overnight. You become that person every time you stop saying, "This is just who I am," and start saying, "This is who I am choosing to become." That is where your power is. Not in the past, not in what happened to you, not in what other people did, in what you choose now. Every day, you are feeding one version of yourself, the weak version or the strong one, the fearful version or the courageous one, the version that keeps waiting, or the version that finally begins. Which version are you feeding? Because one day, the person you repeatedly choose to be will become permanent. And if you continue choosing the same excuses, the same habits, the same fears, then nothing will change. You will still be here next year, carrying the same pain, making the same promises, waiting for the same motivation that never comes. That is the price of refusing to change. And that price is what the next chapter is about. If nothing changes, where will you be 1 year from now? Stop for a moment and answer honestly. If you continue obeying your emotions, avoiding discomfort, waiting for motivation, chasing other people's approval, resisting reality, and repeating the same excuses, what will your life look like? You already know the answer. You will still be tired, still anxious, still overthinking, still telling yourself that tomorrow will be different, while secretly knowing that tomorrow will look exactly like today. That is the real danger. Not that you will fail, not that life will be difficult. The real danger is that you will remain exactly where you are. There is something deeply painful about wasted potential. You know there is more inside you. You know you are capable of becoming stronger, calmer, more disciplined, more courageous. You know you are not meant to live at the mercy of fear, distraction, comfort, and doubt. And yet every day you postpone becoming the person you know you could be. At first, it does not seem serious. You tell yourself it is only one more day, one more excuse, one more delay, one more moment of weakness. But life is built from those moments. The person you become is not shaped by one dramatic decision. It is shaped by the small choices you repeat every day. Every time you say tomorrow, you are building a future based on delay. Every time you choose comfort over discipline, you are teaching yourself that your emotions are stronger than your principles. Every time you avoid what must be faced, you make the next avoidance easier. Then suddenly, years pass. You wake up older, more bitter, more disappointed, carrying the weight of all the things you could have done, but did not do. That is one of the heaviest forms of suffering. Not the pain of trying and failing, the pain of knowing you never truly tried. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, Letter 1, that while we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life speeds by. Life speeds by. It does not wait for you to feel ready. It does not stop because you are afraid. It moves. And every day you spend refusing to act is a day you will never get back. You think you have more time than you do. You think there will always be another chance, another season, another opportunity to become the person you want to be. Maybe there will. Maybe there will not. That is why this matters so much. Because your future is not being created someday. It is being created now. By what you tolerate. By what you avoid. By what you repeat. Imagine yourself 1 year from now if nothing changes. Imagine waking up with the same regrets, the same habits, the same fears, the same quiet voice inside you saying, "I know I could have been more." That voice will become harder to ignore. Because deep down, you already know what you need to do. You know what is destroying your peace. You know what you keep avoiding. You know where you have been lying to yourself. The painful truth is that your life is not waiting for you. It is passing. And every moment you spend trapped in the same cycle is another moment that could have been used to become stronger. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 2, Paragraph 4, that you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Those words are not meant to make you afraid. They are meant to wake you up. You do not have forever. You do not have endless chances to keep starting over while never truly changing. There comes a moment when you must decide. Will you continue living the same way and accept the cost? Or will you finally become the person you know you are capable of being? Because there is always a cost. The cost of discipline is discomfort. The cost of avoiding discipline is regret. The cost of courage is fear. The cost of avoiding courage is a smaller life. The cost of change is uncertainty. The cost of refusing to change is remaining trapped. Choose your cost. Because either way, you will pay. And if you are honest with yourself, you already know which cost is greater. You are not here because you want another year of the same pain. You are here because part of you is tired. Tired of the excuses. Tired of the waiting. Tired of being controlled by emotions, fear, comfort, and doubt. That part of you is ready. Ready to stop negotiating. Ready to stop hiding. Ready to make a decision. And that decision is what the next chapter is about. There is a moment in every life when thinking is no longer enough. You have reflected. You have suffered. You have understood what is holding you back. You know that your emotions have been controlling you. You know that you have been wasting your energy on things you cannot control. You know that you have been waiting for permission, for certainty, for the perfect moment. Now there is only one question left. What are you going to do? Because knowledge changes nothing if it remains inside your mind. You can listen to these words, agree with them, feel inspired for a moment, and then return to the same habits tomorrow. That is what most people do. They confuse understanding with transformation. They think that because they recognize the problem is already solved. It is not. A person can know exactly what is destroying their life and still continue doing it. You already know that. You know what you should stop tolerating. You know what you should start doing. You know where you have been lying to yourself. The issue has never been a lack of information. The issue is that you have not made a decision. Not a weak decision. Not the kind of decision you make when you are emotional and abandon a few days later. A real decision. The kind that changes the way you live. The kind that says, no matter what I feel, no matter what happens, no matter how uncomfortable it becomes, I will no longer betray myself. That is the decision that changes everything. Because from that moment on, your emotions no longer have the final word. Fear can still appear, but it does not control you. Discomfort can still appear, but it does not stop you. Doubt can still appear, but it does not decide for you. You decide. This is where your power begins. Not when life becomes easier, not when you feel more confident. Now, as you are. You do not need to transform your entire life in one day. You do not need to become perfect. You only need to do one thing. Stop surrendering. Stop surrendering your peace to the future. Stop surrendering your mind to fear. Stop surrendering your discipline to your emotions. Stop surrendering your life to the weaker version of yourself. There is a stronger version of you waiting on the other side of this decision, a version of you that keeps their word, that acts even when it is difficult, that remains calm even when life becomes uncertain, that does not need the world to change in order to become stronger. That version of you is not created by motivation, it is created by choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 5, paragraph 19, that at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself that you are rising to do the work of a human being, not because you feel like it, because it is your duty. There is something powerful in that. The Stoics did not wait to feel ready. They acted because they understood that virtue is built through action, through repetition, through doing what is right, even when it is difficult. That is what you must do now. Choose one thing. One fear you will stop obeying. One habit you will stop defending. One truth you will stop avoiding. One action you will take today, not tomorrow. Do not wait for a sign. This is the sign. Do not wait until you feel different. Act and you will become different. Because your life will not change when you think differently. Your life will change when you live differently. And that begins with one decision. From this moment on, I will no longer allow fear, comfort, emotion, or circumstance to rule my life. I will rule it. The next chapter is the final truth. The truth that brings everything together. The truth that the world may remain uncertain, difficult, and beyond your control. But your mind no longer has to be. You have spent so much of your life believing that peace would come later. When life became easier. When people finally understood you. When you had more money, more certainty, more success, more control. You believed that peace was waiting somewhere outside you, in the future, in other people, in circumstances. But now you know the truth. Peace was never there, because anything that depends on the world can be taken away by the world. If your peace depends on praise, criticism will destroy it. If your peace depends on success, failure will destroy it. If your peace depends on certainty, uncertainty will destroy it. You cannot build a stable life on unstable things. And that is why you have suffered for so long. Not because life has been especially cruel to you, but because you have been asking life to give you something it was never meant to give. Permanent security, permanent comfort, permanent control. Life does not work that way. People change, plans fail, you lose things, you get hurt, you face uncertainty. The world remains unpredictable, but none of those things have the power to destroy you unless you allow them to control your mind. That is the final lesson. Your peace does not depend on what happens. It depends on who you choose to be when it happens. You can face loss and remain dignified. You can face fear and remain courageous. You can face uncertainty and remain calm. You can face difficulty and remain disciplined. Because your strength does not come from the world becoming softer. It comes from becoming stronger than the part of you that always wanted the world to be different. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 4, paragraph 49, that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is what you have been searching for. Not a different life. A different relationship with life. A mind that no longer collapses every time something goes wrong. A mind that no longer needs everything to happen perfectly in order to feel at peace. A mind that says, I cannot control what happens, but I can control how I respond. I cannot control who stays and who leaves, but I can control whether I abandon myself. I cannot control how difficult life becomes, but I can control whether difficulty makes me weaker or wiser. That is freedom. Real freedom. Not freedom from pain. Freedom from being ruled by pain. Not freedom from fear. Freedom from obeying fear. Not freedom from difficulty. Freedom from becoming a victim of difficulty. That is what the Stoics understood, and that is what you must remember every day. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to never feel anxious, afraid, sad, angry, or uncertain. You only need to stop giving those feelings authority over your life. Feel them, then choose. Feel fear, then move. Feel pain, then remain standing. Feel doubt, then continue. Because your emotions are real, but they are not your master. Your circumstances are real, but they are not your identity. Your past is real, but it is not your destiny. From this moment on, stop asking life to become easier. Ask yourself to become stronger. Stop asking for certainty. Ask for courage. Stop asking for less struggle. Ask for more discipline. Because the life you want is not on the other side of perfect circumstances. It is on the other side of self-mastery. The world may remain uncertain. People may disappoint you. Life may still be difficult. But if you master yourself, then nothing will ever truly have the power to break you.